All right. Thanks for joining today. My name is Lauren Tuckley. I'm the director in the Center for Research and Fellowships here at Georgetown. This is a really cool unit that supports students that want to get engaged in developing their academic and professional skills, but doing that sort of outside the curriculum, but in a complementary way with your curriculum. So fellowships can mean a lot of different things. Today, we're going to be talking about summer research awards. I use the term sometimes summer research fellowship because really a fellowship has a connotation of like development of skills. And even though we're just talking about research funding today, we'll use the term fellowship sort of interchangeably to talk about like the award itself, how the awards are designed to help you continue to develop your research skill set as it intersects with what you're hoping to do both in your major academically and then potentially down the road post Georgetown experience. So thanks for joining me today. I just want to start real quick by, like research is a lot of different things. Like we throw that term around, like, you have a research paper due, you need to do research for a class. We hear it all the time, like, research says. So that is like just a huge and amorphous sort of nothing of a term in a way. It has a lot of different ways that it's conceived of and done, but essentially, I want you to start thinking about research, or research, at least as we see it here in the Center for Research and Fellowships, is establishing a way of pursuing a standardized type of inquiry. So really, when we're talking about research in higher education, in an academic sense, we're talking about how the people that have the expertise, that you're developing expertise alongside, right? Your faculty member, your major, your discipline, those are sort of in some ways interchangeable sort of synonymous terms. How is it that, we produce knowledge? And how does a group of experts where, drawing on the insights of experts that have been contributing in that line of disciplinary, field specific, or expertise, right? How do they ask questions? How do they identify evidence? And how do they then take the evidence that they found in support of the research question that they asked and bring it back to communities of experts that care about it, right? So like that's sort of at the basic, kind of level, what research means from an academic, kind of contributing knowledge standpoint. Now, for each of you, that can mean a lot of different things. I will talk about more about how that takes a different type of shape when you're thinking about doing a summer research project, if you want to apply for one of the awards that the center offers. But this is sort of where I want you to start thinking about, kind of what you may be applying for, getting into. Before we just jump into the awards.
Get more interesting, which I think.
Oh, I'm going to mute you just because we're recorded, but if you have any questions, hold them to the end. Okay, sorry about that. The benefits of research, I just want to highlight a few things. I mean, of course, you're going to potentially learn what you do and don't like. I think it's really important to find out things that you thought you might have had interest in, but potentially in pursuing that line of inquiry or doing that research project, you're like, hey, this isn't for me. That can be just as clarifying as like when things really work out well and you're like, oh yes, I do love this. And I had a great time and I learned so much. And I have pursued a really interesting research question, and that has been to a great benefit. So it can do both of those things or somewhere in between. I think doing research in the summer is really important because it allows you to continue to develop your network and to meet other researchers, student researchers, faculty members. So I think that there's a really kind of intangible benefit in the long run of working through a project in the summer, whether you're working really closely with a faculty member or whether you've solicited a faculty member to be sort of like your summer mentor. I think those can all be really fruitful and engaging relationships. I think that's part of the appeal. I think having a funded summer research experience continues to demonstrate a subset of skills that are directly looked at by graduate schools, internships, jobs, other fellowships that you might want to apply for. Those are all going to signal a subset of skill sets that are very marketable, that are transferable. So even if you're looking at a very particular research question, and that's not going to really be what you're doing, in the postgrad space, there's a way that research that you had, that fellowship that you had, communicates a subset of skills. It gives you something to talk about. You talk about how you learned, et cetera. So I do think that there are a lot of ways that this can really benefit you. Research is not just for someone that wants to continue to do research for the rest of their life, right? And it is certainly not something that, is only designed for those that want an academic trajectory. We absolutely want all disciplines, all research and career trajectories to think about, putting forward a proposal. Here's something that I was thinking about today that I think is worth mentioning. Have you ever oh, I want to join this not-for-profit organization, or I want to go after this XYZ internship. And then you don't get called back and you apply for things and it doesn't work out. And, you surmise that, oh, I don't have any experience in that. So of course they probably didn't ask me for an interview, or they went for someone else because I have no experience. So getting the first experience can be super tough, especially if your only experience with something is just going to your classes, or having learned about it, through reading, or, doing a project with, school or something like that. Well, I think that you can design an independent research project and do that in the summer, and it allows you to sort of credential in a way. So for example, I had a student that was interested in doing humanitarian work, looking at implementation barriers for aid, thinking about, we have a humanitarian crisis, we have potentially donors, funders, even, government and non-governmental organizations. They get together, they fundraise, and then, they want to do good, right? They want to help, maybe increase access to certain medications or public health services. But oftentimes there's a mismatch between the funding and then actually the doing. So those are called implementation barriers. And so I had a student that really wanted to work in humanitarian issues with, implementation barriers for foreign aid. But even though they were in the School of Foreign Service and had all this experience in the curriculum, couldn't get, those internships, couldn't get their foot in the door because they just didn't have any experience that was closely related to that. So what was kind of cool about taking an independent summer research project is you get to design your own project. And in the process of that project, you can start building your narrative that allows you to draw on and demonstrate and point to experience that you have had in doing an independent research project during the summer, where you got to get engaged with the issue of implementation barriers, that you called 7 or 8 non-for-profit organizations and were allowed to do a subset of interviews with their field officers, and your report, which was a case study of the field officers that were doing public health aid distribution, gave you all these insights about where the pipeline process from aid funding and aid delivery, and you wrote that research paper, and that just is going to give you a ton of stuff to then, when you apply for the next thing, be able to talk about what you did, talk about what you learned, demonstrate that you have experience in doing evaluations for aid funding in humanitarian settings, right? So none of that, that gap that you had can sometimes be filled. It can help pivoting, it can help deepen your experience. So you can really think strategically about not just your project, but what does the project help you do by way of credentials, so that you can use that moving forward in a space that really is appealing to you as kind of an interest area, either academic or professional, right? And this is the thing that I want, if anybody kind of leaves today thinking about, what is the summer research funding? We are actually not funding your research. Surprise. We are funding you learning how to do research. There are very, very few people that will take an independent project in the summer, having never really done full-time independent research before, and then, flawlessly produce the research that they had intended in their proposal. I actually don't think that's ever happened. So while you have to think about designing a very specific, methodologically and disciplinarily informed research proposal, you need to put work into it, you need to put your best foot forward. There's no moment where at the end of your 10 weeks, we come back and say, okay, where's the deliverable here, right? You have to self-identify deliverables. And if that changes as you move forward, because even your research question changes, that's absolutely fine. We are not here to fund your, research to developing, the next vaccination to the Omicron variant. We are not funding we're not the NIH, right? We're here to help you learn how to do research. And that's what's really exciting, because I think it can be really freeing, and you can take some risks here in terms, no, we don't want you going out and putting yourself in harm's way for the purpose of research. You can, design something that maybe you don't have a ton of experience in, but you're going to work really hard, and you are definitely driven, and you're going to really do a deep dive in this new place that you've been thinking a lot about. And we want you to think like that We want you to think in ways that help you develop, refine your learning process. Okay, so really important thing to just sort of keep in mind as we move through here. These are the few things that I'm going to talk about. You'll have to forgive some of the Canva to PowerPoint exports because this is bothering me. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I don't like, it's like, what happened here in the translation, lost in translation. Anyway, you're going to see this in a second. That's what we're going to go over. We're going to go over the fellowships that we administer, how to apply, and then a little bit about project proposal. Here's the first one, very exciting. Raines Research Fellowship. This one, we look for sophomores and juniors in good academic standing. So you have to be kind of enrolled, or not enrolled in summer, but you have to be progressing through your degree program, not on a leave of absence or anything like that. And you will get $5,000 to do a research project. Your research project that you have should comprise about 10 weeks of time. So it's a full research engagement. We're talking kind of like 40 hours a week. There are part-time grants available. If you have a colleague that you want to do some research alongside, you can put together a team, a two-part collaborative proposal, and that would be totally fine. A lot of research happens in collaboration, so we want to start modeling that in terms of the awards that we offer and how we're thinking about helping you shape your research interests. The cool thing about this one is that we will develop a challenge. We will develop a theme. Last year's theme was health and humanity, really broad umbrella kind of topic area. And within that theme, we will solicit proposals, and we want to have students from all across the majors think about how their work and their interest intersects with the theme that we're talking about. So like things that we've kicked around have been like, development, or because, of course, with the School of Foreign Service, there's a lot of people that have an interest in that, or thinking about climate change or environmental sustainability. And how does maybe like almost any discipline have something to say about that larger issue area? So we're gonna have like a larger issue area, we'll have a theme, and then we want to get proposals from the humanities, the social sciences, the hard sciences, that all sort of like directly engage one way or another with that larger theme. The purpose is because as you move through the summer, you'll attend weekly sessions with your cohort where you're going to talk about your research as it's related to this larger issue area that you're all thinking and designing around. And you are going to learn from your colleagues like how their fields do research and how like, a social scientist might approach a question that maybe some, humanist is approaching questions, right? Like we want you to be able to think across disciplines, and this helps do that. And it's also really fun to do that with other people. And we have seminars and guest speakers and things like that. Last year, all of these were run on Zoom. I imagine anyone that ends up in the Raines cohort will be kind of like spread out. I know you all go home. So again, this would be like a lot of it would be online administered, like, the seminar, time would be, okay, well, Thursday at 12, everyone comes on, and we don't have set days and times and things like that, but it's very much just dependent on the cohort's availability and how we're kind of working together to move through the summer research process as it's related to a intractable grand challenge. Okay, so Raines. Colorama are open to first year sophomores and juniors. $5,000 for original research. This one is just really independent. We might have one or two meetings where all the Colorama students come together, and maybe we facilitate some sort of like informal, kind of group opportunities for you to engage with your other peers. But this is, for our humanities, social science, and environmental science students to put together independent project and to go do it. And that's really kind of what this one is about. I didn't put this here, but it's worth mentioning that this one is approximately 12 fellows each year. Okay, so a few more for that. All right. And again, as long as you're not in a hard science, you can do whatever you want. You're not like pointing at an issue. It's just for you to sort of design, propose, implement, move forward. And then we have the larger funding opportunities. So I mean, larger is like we have a lot more of these awards, particularly because of the way research works in the hard sciences. In a lot of STEM fields, research is happening with a faculty member or it's happening like in a lab setting and you're reporting to like a doctoral student, and there's maybe grad students and undergrads working on these like larger set of issues and questions that are driven by the PI or the leader of your lab. And in those instances, there is like not a lot of independent research. You're still learning, you're contributing. You haven't gotten to the place where you're able to ask your own specific questions. Sometimes asking your own specific questions requires a lot of budget of your own because you need special microscopes or you need all sorts of things. So again, since the STEM fields work in a more mentored collaborative environment, we really encourage the STEM students to apply in this category. And here we also have part-time grants available. So we're talking about 20 hours over 10 weeks or 5 weeks of full-time, either way. You can essentially, you know, maybe you are a humanities student and you don't have an independent project that you want to do, but you know a faculty member is like doing a book project and, you know, they're looking at like just some, you know, potentially like forms of kind of colonialism in the Ottoman Empire, right? Or something like this, and writing history from some sort of particular vantage point. They need someone to help with their book project over the summer. You can be an undergraduate research assistant and, you know, take the funding. That way you can spend your time providing your faculty member with research assistantship. So you can submit mentored research experience across any disciplines, but we just try to get the STEM fields to apply in this category as much as possible because it's really hard to apply anywhere else if you're wanting to do kind of a lab-based research opportunity during the summer. Okay. We usually have, you know, between 20 and 25 of these, so there's quite a few more of these opportunities than the other ones, which are a little smaller and endowed opportunities. And what else should I say about this? We don't have like a roster of projects. Like if you want to have a mentored opportunity, this will take you reaching out to a faculty member, seeing what kind of research they have going on, see if they need an undergraduate research assistant, and you can, you know, sort of like pitch your idea to like help them out, you know, during the summer as a research assistant. So, you know, I think that we will have in the early spring before the application deadline, a session on like, you know, some of those ins and outs of like how to actually do that, how to identify faculty, how to have asks to join labs or to join, you know, and be a research assistant on their various, you know, kind of like scholarly endeavors during the summer. So we'll have some more information about that. If that kind of seems like, oh, I really want to do this, but I'm not quite sure how to get the ball rolling, we hope to be able to provide you with that in the coming weeks after the Christmas break or winter break, okay? So those are the three main awards. Let's go ahead and put that here. So 20 to 25 awards. This one is not a cohort-based model because you're sort of out there being, you know, so many different ways this has, this functions. Whoop, let's see. Ooh, all right. I want to just do a quick plug real quick. Yeah, for everyone that is like, the duration of the Smurf program, good question, sorry, I should say that, is 10 weeks, 10 weeks. Faculty member for 10 weeks, just like the others, the other one full-time projects. If you need to pop off, no worries. I will record and send this around on the listserv afterwards. So thank you for coming. If you need to go to class, so on and so forth. If you are a first year or sophomore, I want you, if you have not already heard about this program, I'm just going to do a plug real quick and then we'll get to the other components. I would really, really like you to learn more by joining the Laidlaw listserv, email fellowships at georgetown.edu. We have gotten a huge, you know, opportunity to fully fund your research and leadership development, and it's only for first years and sophomores. So I think it's really exciting to start that early in doing some of this. I think it can really help direct the latter half of your undergraduate education. And essentially what you're getting is 6 weeks of funded summer research. You get the support of living in your cohort community while you're doing that research. We are looking for 25 scholars to do that. After summer one, you know, after your first summer, you would have a year, an academic year's worth of leadership development that we're going to run out of this office, and that includes like retreats and seminars and the LBS workshop, which is like the London Business School, kind of like an executive leadership scholar is going to come and talk about, you know, for all the scholars across all the partner universities, so like hundreds of Laidlaw scholars coming together to do the LBS workshop. really thinking about ethically driven, purposeful leadership skills. And that's going to be, it's not for credit, but you are like part of a community, you're getting this paid for, you have opportunities to travel. There's like a lot of really good benefits associated with this. Then in the summer too, you're going to implement a 6 weeks funded leadership and action project. That's where you take some of the learning, educational research, kind of stuff that you did in summer one. You take all that leadership development that you've been working on really hard throughout the academic year, and then you go implement your project. And a project could be anything, so long as it's directing your skills and talents for driving forward a good, change, for lack of a better way to put it. You can do service, so you could do it through volunteering. You could do it through an entrepreneurial like project design that you want to, start your own microloan company and whatever. Or you can work with a charitable organization that the Laidlaw has a roster of charitable organizations, and they bring Laidlaw scholars from all around the other partner schools, and they come together and they do their leadership project. Again, we're working on implementing some of the skills that we hopefully have helped you develop during the academic year. So I'm going to not say any more about that, although I definitely think if you're interested in research at all or leadership development, this is going to be an amazing program that we continue to invest in heavily and grow at Georgetown. So I would love for anyone that's on this call today that meets some of those basic eligibility requirements to reach out and join the listserv. Okay, I'll stop at that one. And that's at fellowships@georgetown.edu. Now back to the research. For all of those 3 research opportunities, the RAINS, the Colorama, the summer funded research, and the research, and actually, yes, the research proposal component of the Laidlaw scholarship application will consist of a research project proposal. And that's what I'm going to talk about here in a second. This one is so kind of like the big core, really important component. I'm like updating slides in real time. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm living my best life here. All right. So basically, the application components will not be 100% solidified or available until after Christmas break. Very soon afterwards, even before we come back to campus, we'll start messaging, what the parameters are, but essentially you're going to have a biographical, it's just like your, school and major, et cetera. There will be the research project proposal. You'll have a goals statement. So how is this going to help you, continue to develop your academic or professional goals, transcript. If you are interested in the mentored research opportunity, so where you're supporting a faculty member or you're in a lab doing research, you'll need a letter from that faculty member support. And if you are designing your own independent research project, you need a letter of recommendation or support from a faculty member that will be able to engage you across the summer as you have questions. They don't have to meet with you every week. They don't have to have an intensive mentorship relationship with you, but they do need to be able to sort of say like, hey, yeah, I'll be around to like answer this person's questions, and they took this class. Is sort of like they're going to extend the final paper in this class, and they did such a great job. I think that their proposal is going to be great. So it's sort of like a recommendation, but someone that's sort of saying like I can kind of be their kind of unofficial mentor of a sorts during the summer as they do this. Okay, resume, and then we want a timeline. So we want to see how you're really thinking about the pieces of how all these things come together. Those of you that are proposing research where you're going to be interacting with human subjects, you could potentially need institutional review board, that's IRB, review an exemption. If you think you fit that category but are unclear, please be in touch with me and we can talk about it. If you are planning, I've had plenty of people before pandemic, especially like, oh, I'm going to fund my flight to Mozambique, where I'm going to go to the national park and look at like how parks are contested territory that like impact conflict, right? Conflict resolution between, neighboring, countries in Africa. And I want to use my entire flight to go to Mozambique. Okay, that's fine. Totally great. Use the funding to do that. We don't actually care how you use the funding. We don't ask for like an itemized bill. We're just hoping you will use it to like offset potentially the need to work or to purchase the really expensive flight that gets you to the place where you want to do your research. But with all that said, so much of the travel is not about like us saying what you can and can't do and how you pursue your research question. It has to do with COVID. It has to do with safety precautions. So all of that kind of changes in real time. If you're going to be like, I need to go, I'm going to be a research assistant in the, in a lab in Switzerland or something. Okay, that's great. but you should also potentially have a COVID backup plan. There's more information about that. We will not ding you or discount your project if you have to like do a plan B. We have many people in funded summer research that had to completely redo it during the first summer of the pandemic, right? So more on that later, but just be careful if you're planning travel and that's how you want to use your funds. We are going to need to just make sure that you're, kind of clear to go and have a backup plan in case that falls through or you can't do it after you get the award and you find out like life has changed once again. Okay. So much of this hinges on the proposal, right? Well, I think that we want to help you. So what we're going to do is we're going to run, let's see if we're going to go to this right now. No, maybe. I have a Canvas course site that goes over basically the components of writing a competitive proposal for projects, research projects, really modeled after the summer, research projects that are run through here, the Center for Research and Fellowships. So we want to just sort of like get you kind of acquainted with doing a project proposal, what that really looks like. So you can self-enroll in the Canvas course, or you can, I would highly suggest So self-enroll in the Canvas course where you can have access to all of this now, or in January, January 14th, right when we come back, the first week classes resume that Friday. We're going to do our Friday series of going through each of those modules where you can come in, you'll get like a little brief, kind of 30-minute thing from me about, how to get started with research. And then we'll have Q&A. We may do some like peer work. All of this is designed to help take you through the process of proposal design so that you can put together a competitive research project. And at the very least, if it doesn't work out, there's high chances that you will have put enough effort into this to potentially be able to apply for other things too. So I think that it's worth your time to consider how to put forward research proposal applications. And this gives us an ability to kind of teach you how to do that and then potentially also help you receive a summer funded research opportunity. We also have a supplemental opportunity to learn about how to engage your faculty, how to manage those relationships, and then how to ask for recommendations. It's not necessarily a part of proposal writing, but since it is a part of like your application process for any of the summer awards, the Laidlaw opportunity, all of the things that you're already needing to ask for recommendations, we want to offer this to anybody who wants to take it, whether or not you're applying for. So it's why we call it supplemental. It has a larger scope. So maybe you are potentially really great. I don't need to do the project module stuff. I think I have a good handle on doing a proposal. Regardless, it's not a bad idea to try to attend the managing faculty relationships and asking for letters of recommendation session. And that's just there. I would recommend anybody and everybody to come to that. So those are sort of the resources that we have. Those things are starting in the early spring semester. And right now we're looking at a deadline. I haven't put it on here purposely because we're still confirming a few things. We're trying to allow for people that are interested in applying for the Laidlaw to kind of like piggyback into the larger research application process so that you're not doing two things. So like if you wanted to do a Laidlaw application and then a summer research application, because Laidlaw, these are all competitive and you may want to think about casting a wider net, et cetera. We don't want you to like have to do too much duplicative work, okay? So highly recommend, kind of like starting this now, but keeping in mind that like we're looking at the week that kind of follows this last putting it all together proposal. So probably the 25th is the following Friday. If not that, probably the Friday or the next week before spring break. So absolutely, we don't want to be reading and doing projects over spring break. We want to have all this done before then. And hopefully we get feedback and selection to everybody by the end of March. And that is the presentation. So let me stop and then we will take Q&A. Stop share. Let me stop the video. Great. Okay.